Tim, welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Omega Seamaster 300M Master Co-Axial 41mm in brushed and polished stainless steel. You can see this Omega Seamaster, Master Co-Axial, and purchase it on our website, watchyouwant.com. And if you enjoy these videos and you'd like to see more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, I just had the SPECTRE version of the 300M Master in, and I'd like to highlight some of the differences between the two because I only had that example for a brief period. It was on a NATO strap, so I didn't get to highlight all of the significant facets of the basic model, and I didn't get to draw a distinction with the bracelet and the outstanding clasp that Omega ships with this watch. So let's go over the basics first and then get into some of the detail differences. On my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters, you can see this one wears exactly like the SPECTRE, with the single distinction that this one's on a bracelet and the SPECTRE was on the NATO. The stance is great. Full-sized but not oversized, very much vintage in its details and proportions, at 41mm across the round portion of the case and 48mm from extremity of lug to extremity of lug. This one has a nice modern stance on the wrist, so it's not going to look undersized like some vintage watches can. Not pure vintage, this one is a vintage homage more than an outright replica watch. Moreover, 15mm thick, and it has a broadly cantilevered bezel, so it actually overhangs the case a bit. Probably not the ultimate choice to wear with a dress cuff, but you shouldn't have much trouble with sport blazers or jackets. But make no mistake, as a true sports watch, this one has an element that I didn't get to showcase on the SPECTRE, which was on the accessory strap, though included with the bracelet, and that is this spectacular 3-link Omega dive bracelet, polished on its flanks for just enough reflectivity. It wears that reflectivity like jewelry, with the hoods of the lugs themselves beautifully brushed with a nice fine, gorgeous grain. Again, just enough reflectivity to catch light on the top and reflect it brilliantly on the sides. Now you can see the bracelet is a step up from the Pierce Brosnan era Bond bracelets that we came to know and love. Still beautifully finished, still feels all of a piece when closed, still closes with that satisfying snick and snap, and still a twin trigger action. The distinction here is that they now feature, let me see if I can get a good image of it, a push piece on the inside. So while you still have the adjustability that we've always known and loved on these bracelets, it's now incremental and very much a match for Rolex's glide lock system. And by pushing that trigger, you get to move it in 2mm increments, so you don't have to pull it out in the all or nothing fashion of the old dive extensions. This is a great innovation, and again, it helps Omega to keep a pace with developments from Breitling and especially Rolex. Now, beautifully finished and comfortable on the wrist. The bracelet is as handsome on the top as it is cleverly designed on the bottom. You can see how large the seams are between the links on the underside. The better to not catch and pull and pinch hair and skin. Very clever. Again, this is functional finish, whereas the tops are aesthetic finish, and there's a nice distinction between the two, both very well done. Now the bezel here, featuring liquid metal fill within a ceramic compound that Omega creates in its own materials science labs. Both of these innovations combine for a bezel that will last far longer than the 50s bezel that inspired it, whereas that one can become scratched, deformed, and faded. This one, co-molded, co-bonded, metal within ceramic, actually has very much the same practical hardness as sapphire. Sapphire is a little harder in an absolute sense, but each one is almost impossible to scratch with the kind of slings and arrows you encounter in daily action on the wrist, so this watch will maintain its good looks long into the future. In addition to durability and a different calibration, the SPECTRE had 1 to 12 calibration. This one has 0 to 60. It also has a different action than the SPECTRE. The SPECTRE had a different look and bidirectional action. This one is a true diving bezel, and unidirectional action, it moves in one direction only. So if you want to align it with the minutes hand, and I'm aligning the loomed pearl right now, you can use it as a 60-minute dive timer to time something ranging from barbecue to an actual dive, but it gives you a measure of security as well as versatility. In true diving fashion, the watch is beautifully loomed. While it has a patina aged radium look to the indices themselves, which in Panerai fashion are sunken into the dial for a sort of sandwich look, the bottom line is that the patina effect has no bearing on the actual effectiveness of the loom. And this is something I'd like to highlight that I didn't really show you in the SPECTRE overview, but I want to let you see how, although it's aged in the light, it actually glows a bright blue just like Rolex's Chromalight system, with one distinction. So let me kill the lights briefly, charge it up. Enter stage right, and now you can see the distinction here. So you see the blue luminescence of the indices, the broad arrow hour hand, and the constant seconds hand, but you can see how, for the sake of quick differentiation, the pearl on the bezel as well as the minute hand are actually a bright, almost signal green luminova type, so you can quickly distinguish the time in general, the indices themselves, and that which is being timed with the dive timing bezel. It's a clever measure, one that adds to the practicality and, should you actually dive with it, the utility of this Seamaster 300-meter Master Coaxial. Now let me get the light back on. Ah, my eyes. Now you can see the last measure of distinction between this and the James Bond 007 Spectre edition on the dial, and that's the distinction at 12 o'clock as well as the different design of the seconds hand. The lollipop that's used on the Bond is at variance with the triangular marker used here. This one is a little bit more useful in as much as it features a fine distinction of the overlaid needle at the end of the hand, giving you perhaps a better bearing on precisely where the hand is at any given time. And that's useful if you do want to pull the crown and take advantage of the Coaxial Calibre 8400's ability to hack and synchronize precisely to the second to a dive timer. You see how that works, aided by the needle at the end of the seconds hand. And furthermore, since we're at the station at 12, you can see this one features the Arabic numeral 12 at the index, unlike the Bond edition, which features a larger Omega marquee at that position. So aesthetics aside, mechanically, this is very much the Bond. Now the case back design is different, the Bond featuring 007 commemorative labeling around the exterior, but inside it's the same gorgeous in-house Omega Coaxial Calibre 8400. Let me get this one into focus and we'll go in depth. Now it's an outstanding Omega twin barrel, automatic winding, free sprung, full balance bridge, COSC rated chronometer. It's also an amagnetic watch featuring full ceramic componentry. Omega calls it SI14. This watch is completely resistant to magnetic fields, which is not to say that it fights them off in the fashion that a watch like a Rolex Milgauss will with shielding, but it's simply immune to them. You can put this through an MRI. You can go head-to-head with a particle collider. I can't vouch for the rest of you, but your watch will be okay. Outstanding timing stability. These latest generation Omega exclusive coaxials are finally delivering on the promise of the original George Daniels coaxial escapement innovation, with the long service intervals, the stability over time, and the benefits of the reduced friction within the escapement that he promised up front. Now, with amagnetic capability, long power reserves, and a gorgeous standard of in-house finishing, they're both accurate and durable. And I should mention, with twin mainspring barrels, Omega has nice even torque release across the full 60-hour power reserve, so this one keeps good time from a full wind right down to the very last few minutes of its power reserve. And, like I said earlier, with hacking seconds, you can synchronize this COSC chronometer precisely to a reference timer. Now, some of the finishing standards that Omega uses are unique and distinctive of these coaxial calibers. The 8500 family, debuted in 2007, they featured a beautiful, almost spiral arabesque Côte de Genève that you can see on the bridges and the rotors, blackened screws rather than polished or cobalt blued, and they do have little cutaways, not precisely skeletonization, but there are some cutaways in the bridges to give you insight into the goings-on beneath. You can see little views of, principally right here, you can see the escapement beating away. So it's a nice way of distinctively decorating a movement that is exclusive to the Omega line with a lot of in-house technology and innovation. This aspect of the watch, more than any other, really reflects just how much Omega has narrowed, perhaps even completely closed the gap to Rolex. This watch is the full package: timeless styling, modern capabilities, screw-down crown, because I know this was asked in one of our comment threads a few days ago. It is a screw-down crown, a true dive watch in the modern ISO sense. It does have 300-meter, 1,000-foot diving capability. It's also an outstandingly accurate watch and a stylish timepiece that's welcome in any occasion, formal or as casual as you like. You can see this Omega Seamaster 300-meter Master Coaxial 41mm in stainless steel on our website, watchyouwant.com.